We are going to talk about high conflict couples, and I'm going to take a real helicopter view. And this could be a training for counselors and coaches. It could also be a training for couples that are seeking therapy. Now, mostly, I want couples that are in high conflict marriages to consider this before they start counseling because it will save them hours of counseling. In fact, part of the 5 to 7 years of counseling that is generally needed by a high conflict couple is wasted in these first 4 points. Now, these are all really good people showing up in conflict. They're wonderful individuals. They've got friends, they've got associates, they've got people that love them and they love people. But in their marriage, they have such intense conflict because of what's been going on. So high conflict couples are not broken people. They're not people that are out of control emotionally. They're generally not narcissistic, though they can be. Generally not borderline personality disordered, but they can be. It's just not mandatory. Remember, narcissism and borderline and those personality disorders that are very histrionic only make up a very small 6 to 10% of society. Now, those numbers are juggling a little bit because there's a little bit more narcissism in our world today than there was 25 years ago. But the idea behind every high conflict couple has a narcissist or a borderline. Not the case. It's just that a lot of therapists quickly label people borderline and narcissistic when they're difficult to deal with. But if you think through this lens that I'm going to share, the difficulty that they are to deal with is because they've been at war for so long. And when you have two people at war for a long time, sometimes decades, the competition is fierce. And for them to survive in a relationship decade after decade in high conflict with that heightened state of rage and fear and all of that that's involved, they're going to look a little narcissistic. They're going to look a little unempathetic, a little bit grandiose, a little bit, because they've had to get really good. And some of these people that come to you in high conflict marriages come from high conflict families of origin. And so their family of origins have taught them how to live in conflict and chaos, while perhaps another family of origins taught them to be at peace. But then when they get into a conflict in their marriage, they don't know how to negotiate. So they go passive, and then they create a passive war against the other one. There's so many factors there, but I'm going to share with you couples and counselors that are coming into therapy in high conflict marriages that if you can manage these 4 things, at least somewhat prepare to manage them, the first 2 years of counseling is generally thumping these 4 things into the heads of the couple that come in. And that's probably an inappropriate thumping them into there. That sounds violent. I don't mean to sound violent, but you literally have to drive these points home. Most often, a couple in conflict will show up to therapy wanting the counselor just to tell the other one that they're wrong. In fact, I've had couples come in and say, look, we only need 1 session. Just tell us which one of us is right. And that's always a bad sign because generally neither of them are wrong. They're just not right together. So one wants a cleaner house and one wants to spend more time with the kids bonding and building their self-esteem and not beating them up over chores. And they're both right, but is there a way to come together and create a marriage around that? Or one wants to stay at home and raise kids, and one wants them both to work and make more money. Now, neither one of those is wrong. It's just the marriage contract is broken. And so we have these couples that show up. Sometimes they show up with horrendous, huge problems about laziness, about sloth, about infidelity, about how loud and angry one is and how the other one's tired of getting screamed at, and the other one's how little communication the one has, and they have to get mad and yell in order to get a response out of the other one. They come pretty polarized. In fact, most of your high conflict couples that are good at being in conflict have been there for decades. We talked about that a moment ago. They've been there for decades, and they've learned the art of staying in conflict and staying married. they're likely deeply in love. They're likely wanting and aching for someone to share with them a way that they can stay in love and connected. Pretend you've got a couple that comes in and there's three themes. There's probably 1,000, but these three are the three that are on my mind today. There's the distancer and the pursuer. This is the high conflict couple where there is a loud aggressive that just wants things done and to be right. They make agreements and they keep them, and their partner never quite makes the agreement but gets beaten to a corner by the louder, more aggressive one, and they're just not aggressive. They're more passive in their personality. They're more agreeable maybe in their personality. But the form of agreeableness that this person has taken over here is, I'm going to tell the aggressive one whatever they want to hear to get out of conflict, and then I'll see how I feel later about it. Now, can you see the dilemma there? The loud aggressive one has now no longer has to worry about being loud and aggressive, because the loud aggressive one is right because the agreeable one breaks their word all the time. The one that breaks their word all the time has this deep feeling of never being at liberty, always feeling beat down. They describe themselves like being beat down like a dog until they just don't have a person anymore. Well, the aggressive loud one says, well, just tell me no. I would rather hear no than a yes and acquiesce and just accommodate me and then do what you want. But the quiet one has felt for so long that they just can't take the loud, aggressive approach. So they will say whatever it takes, and then they'll go and do whatever they want. They evolve over a decade into yeah, and then do what they want and hope that they don't get caught, and then they'll fight. But at least they're not like in the conflict. Now, in this kind of relationship, as you can tell, the one that makes agreements that they don't even plan on keeping can be justified in they've gotten beat down because they can't do loud, okay? So they just agree, but they're wrong in doing that. They have to say no if they don't agree. They have to say, I can't talk to you when you're that flooded. Or the aggressive one, like in my world, I can be pretty loud and aggressive without being flooded. It just feels normal to me. My family of origin was more loud, more aggressive, more like blah in your face, and we took a lot of heat without feeling our heart rates even go up. Now, my wife, on the other hand, comes from a very calm, very quiet family where they thought through things and then they would speak things, and as they spoke them, it would come out perfect because they would think through it before they'd say it. My family of origin, we'd scream it and fix it as we went. We would like get loud and like animated and then literally adjust. We wouldn't think through it first. And so very different ways of communicating. And so there's a risk of, because she feels so nervous about my speed and tempo that she just wants to say yes to anything just to get out of the conversation. So I have to be really careful to like slow down, calm down, make sure she has time to think through things, make sure she has time to be respected in the process. Now, if I'm willing to do that, we get along. But how many couples have the wherewithal to figure that out without a coach? So often this person just looks like a liar because they say yes to everything and then do what they want. So often this person looks like they're just being wronged all the time because of course they're mad. Their partner lies to them all the time. But how it started was this loud person not seeing that they were harming the person that was more quiet. They never adjusted their tone and tempo. See, part of how we communicate is tone and tempo. Part of how we communicate is using our voice, using our the timbre of our voice, our body language. So if I go, I love you, versus, hey, I want you to know just really how much I love you. It's a very different tone, very different timbre, very different body language in the two. Which one would feel more actually loving? Okay? And so every couple needs to figure that out for each other. If in this high conflict couple, you've got a passive and an aggressive, or a distancer and a pursuer, then the distancer is going to always be running from, because they don't like the pursuer's approach, and the pursuer is going to pursue. And every once in a while they swap places where the pursuer says, fine, I'm done. And then the quiet one will kind of like, no, please don't be done. I'll do better. I'll do better. But then they don't do better because they don't change their actual approach. You also can have two aggressive people. I've got clients right now that are both so aggressive, so like it's hard to get a word in edgewise. They will be so certain that they're right that they talk aggressively at the same time. Now, neither of them are talking hoping to be understood. They're hoping to wear the other one out. So the goal in that lateral relationship is to just wear down the other one, wear them down to where they don't have anything left, and then you won, you get a win. And then hopefully the next one, the other one wins to keep it a little bit balanced. So if you got two aggressive ones, they literally both have to be quiet and they have to decide who goes first. One speaks calmly about the whole issue, one issue at a time, and the other one listens to understand. They don't listen to build a case or to respond. They don't listen to be right. Just like the one that's speaking doesn't speak to influence, they speak to be understood. That is such a hard concept, is that idea of speaking to be understood, not speaking to influence. Listen to understand, not listen to respond. So those are key terms that you'll use, and these are key terms that if a couple comes into therapy in high conflict, knowing a little bit about, they can get through the first couple of years of counseling in just a matter of minutes or months, okay? You also have the defeated, beat-up person and the strong-willed, no negotiation person. And these are couples that get together mainly because the indecisive one likes a decisive leader. And the decisive leader finally gets tired of not having a partner, and so they just start beating each other up. What attracted them is now polarizing them. And so you need to help them, again, learn to communicate, learn to have boundaries, learn to have a sense of self, build that ego strength up. So that's the area number one. Area number one in high conflict couples, they both want you to tell them that they're right. Neither of them has learned to communicate with the other. They both just are looking for votes. They're looking for someone to validate them and not each other. They're looking for a therapist or an outside coach or an outside friend to say, yep, you're right, your partner's all wrong. And it's really an all or nothing game with that portion of them. Now, the second dilemma that comes into high conflict counseling, that if you as a high conflict couple will resolve before coming to therapy, if you'll just make a manageable agreement to get through this, each person in a high conflict couple has either a list on paper or a mental note. With iPhones and technology, some people have these lists on their phone that they can just pull out at any time. Here's everything that my partner does wrong. They both have this long list, and they also have evidence that their list is right. Like, lousy housekeeper, never does her share. And I've got pictures to prove it on my phone. I'll show you what our bedroom looks like. Now, can you imagine the spouse of the person showing pictures of the bedroom thinking, but half that stuff's theirs? Or when are they going to pick up? Or he spent time cleaning off the bathroom vanity on his side, and then her side's a mess, took a picture of it showing his side spotless and hers messy, just to make her feel bad in the therapy. See, one of them, like, they are certain that their evidence is correct, that means they're oppressed in the relationship. Both of them have evidence that they're right. One of them might come in and do this. In a high conflict couple, someone might come in and say, I don't have any expectations on my partner. I don't have any expectations whatsoever. My partner has all these expectations of me, and I can't live under that anymore. And so that's a very covert way of saying, I've kind of ended me in the relationship. I don't even care anymore. That person's always mad, and I don't care. I want them to just live their life and leave me alone. So see how that doesn't work either. Number 3, this one is probably the big one. Both individuals have literally either never had the ability to communicate, or they've lost the ability to communicate in a healthy manner. There's no safety in communication. They both communicate with you always and you never statements. They both lack this ability to have empathy for the other one's story. They both believe that the other one's just wrong and has no right to speak. I've got one couple at any given time that does not want to even hear from the other person. They just want the other person to listen, make agreements with them, and change. In fact, this person said, I don't see how I can validate their point of view when they don't see the facts. Now, when I questioned what the facts were all this other person's opinions. They were, every bit of them was the opinions of the person that felt correct. No facts whatsoever, just opinions. Opinions about business, opinions about money spending, opinions about house cleaning and shared responsibilities. But no real facts. The only fact is that there is house chores to do, there is money to budget, and there is work ethic to be worked out. But her opinions of her partner were so negative that she felt like her opinions were actually facts and would refuse to empathize with any opinions that came from him. So be wary of that, because every story has some facts, and then the vast majority of information and data is your opinion, and opinions need to be negotiated into a shared belief window, like a shared vision of what's going on. And so when you use you always and you never statements, that means that you've basically given up on the other person having any validating or any defining good qualities. If you strongly believe that you know the other person so well that you don't need to hear from them, you're doing it wrong. I already know what he's going to say, or I already know how she's going to react, so I'm not going to deal with it. See, if you already know everything, then why are you coming to counseling? See, if you already know everything, you're going to fix it yourself and it's going to be fine. But if you can't fix it, it's likely that you don't really already know everything. And so I want you all to forget what you know. Come to therapy, and therapists coach your new clients that are high conflict to show up forgetting everything they know about each other and starting with a fresh, clean slate. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to forget the ills. They still need to repent to each other. But forget that they think what they think they know. Forget every flooded fight that they've had, that they've both blurted stuff out that the other one's hanging on to. They just need to let all that go. They can't seem to concede to validating. It's really hard to validate, even if you understand you're not agreeing. So one person says, I just really feel sad that, and they're trying to do it correct. See, incorrect would be saying, you never help around the house and you just blow money and I'm sick of it. Okay, now the correct way of saying that, I feel sad a lot because it seems like our house chores are not fair. They're not equal. I feel like I'm kind of overworked and I feel like I'm breaking under the pressure of too much to do. And then our money situation, I feel like we're just not on the same page, and it makes me unhappy and it makes me feel like almost like I don't trust you. And then the partner, to validate that, even though they disagree, could say, that could be super painful to feel like everything's uneven. And if you're about to break under the pressure of all the work you have to do, that would be an awful feeling. And I'm sorry that you don't see us on the same page financially. I'm sorry for that. I would like to be there with you. See, I haven't agreed with anything that the person said. I'm just empathizing that I trust they feel that way. Some couples can't bring themselves to empathize and trust that another person actually feels the way that they feel. And you have to trust that everybody has their own personhood. Everybody, see you, if you're narcissistic, you can't bear someone else having a different opinion. It has to be your opinion, so they're just lying to hurt you. But most of you are not narcissists. Most of you have just lost the ability. You've gone cold inside. And so because you've gone cold, as prophesied, you've gone cold, you're unable to extend mercy. And so you just won't have it, that they have a different point of view. So you need to get back to validating without agreeing. Many couples in high conflict jump right over the top of any kind of conversation about what's going on to change talk. If you would just do this and this and this, we would be fine. And I told you last week, if you would just do this and this, we would be fine. But see, they skipped the whole step of what's going on in the world of the other. So they have to slow down and take turns sharing their opinions with each other about the event. And so there's an event. The event might be chores didn't get done, or chores got done and one feels unfair and the other one feels like it's fair. They have to talk through that event. And then after that, change talk can happen. So often couples feel like that's a waste of time. I don't need to hear their point of view. I already know their point of view. I just want them to keep their word, period. Well, maybe this person's not keeping the word because they feel like you're a bully. Maybe they're not keeping the word because they feel like you're just unempathetic and that you always get your way. Or maybe this person feels like you never have an opinion and we just sit in silence forever. And so I don't know what to do. Somebody has to lead. See, all of these dilemmas drive mischief in the marriage. So difficulty slowing down, validating, and really listening, and quick to just think the other one's a liar if they have a different point of view. And so picture those dilemmas, and if you can resolve those with this solid commitment to, I'm going to go to therapy and really learn about the world of my partner. I'm going to really listen to understand what's going on. So at some point, here's the final four of the big four that drive people away from solution finding in high conflict marriages. At some point, someone or both of them will get mad at the therapist and fire him. See, if you've shown up to counseling to be told you're right and to get help with your partner, to be told that your partner's a narcissist and you're right, you've been oppressed, you're going to get mad at your therapist when your therapist asks you to slow down and take accountability for your side of the street. So often it shocks the person that wants to be right to hear that they're just not always going to be right. See, there's always really three entities in the room, okay? There's this partner A and partner B, or spouse A, spouse B, and then the marriage. The marriage is broken. The partners are fine. The partners just need to learn to communicate. They're both perfect. I love them both. So I need to give you feedback on how to fix the marriage and you feedback on how to fix the marriage. And if you two can cooperate to help the marriage and nurture the marriage, you're going to win. And so think about it. If both of you are needed to help the relationship, then that means you're on the same team. So if you compete with each other, you're going to lose the relationship because the relationship can't handle competition. If you two are competing with each other, the relationship dwindles and dies. If you focus on the relationship and what you can do, and you focus on the relationship and what you can do, the relationship will always thrive. And so if you stop competing and start working on both of you supporting the marriage, your marriage is going to be wonderful. If you stop thinking you're right and he's wrong, or you're right and she's wrong, and start thinking through the lens of what am I not doing to enhance the intimacy in our relationship, see, the minute you do that, everything changes. It's literally a game changer. So I need you to get out of finding fault, giving distorted feedback, having a distorted view of your grand importance in the relationship. If you stop competing with your partner over being right and they being wrong and just trying to get votes, so you can always get votes because you can always sound like you're right, because most often both of you are. You're just not eye to eye doing it at the same time. And so the idea is if both of you could focus on the relationship and start negotiating healthy agreements and having healthy boundaries to save your marriage, it would work. The only time I disagree with what I've just said is characterological domestic violence. If there is characterological domestic violence, see, there's violence that happens in marriage because of high flooded frustration and couples that won't back down. There's characterological violence where one person or the other has a violent nature. They are violent. If you're with a violent person, you need to get out of the relationship. If it's characterological, there's no hope there. You must get safe. If there's violence because there's verbal violence and even physical violence because the relationship gets flooded and you act out, then you need to stop getting flooded. Every time you get flooded, you take a time out. So all other couples, aside from characterological violence, each person will begin working on how to keep the system intact. What each person works at their side of the street. Picture a street. You've got your side of the street, your curb and gutter sidewalk, your side of the street, curb, gutter, sidewalk, maybe even windows of storefronts. You clean up your side of the street and you clean up your side of the street. Throw away your list of evidence that the other one's wrong. Throw it away. Really stop trying to diagnose the other. So many times I'll have one partner come in and just disclose, I'm sure my partner's a narcissist. I'm sure of it. Here's the list. They check off every box. Well, generally the person doing that is the narcissist, if there is one, not the person being blamed on being a narcissist. So if I show up to therapy and say, I'm sure my wife's a narcissist, it's more than likely that I'm projecting my narcissism on my wife. And so be careful of that. Counselors and individuals in marriage, don't diagnose your partner. You can't do it. That's why therapists don't diagnose people in their family. That's why therapists don't diagnose ward members. And that's why therapists should never jump on board with one and say, yeah, your partner sounds like a narcissist. Never do that. Never even hint that, like, okay, if everything you say is correct, your partner's a narcissist, because they'll run with that and it's probably not true. There are very few narcissists in the world. There's a lot of people with traits, but very few actual narcissists. So throw away the list of evidence, stop all blame. Learn to communicate, sharing validation, empathy, and get away from blame and competition. Validation and empathy, and get away from a blame and competition. Finally, remember that there is a lot of years of counseling involved in high conflict marriage. If you don't come in prepared, it'll take longer. But it's the first couple of years, 2 to 3 years, is getting everything out and correctly put into its place. Now, you can make that go a lot faster if you show up willing to just be accountable. Okay, then after the first 2 to 3 years of getting everything out and getting everything kind of in place so that we can start making agreements, there's 1 to 2 years of negotiating boundaries and agreements. So boundaries are couple wide. Both of you keep the same boundaries. If the boundary is we don't drink, then neither of you drinks. If the boundary is we show respect, then both of you show respect. If the boundary is we both have strong work ethic, then you both work on that. Agreements are literally based upon needs. So I need you to agree to not let the kids eat in my truck, and I need you to agree to quit yelling at the kids when they eat in my car. So that's an agreement. You can both be different. I want an agreement that it's okay that I drive myself to church because I want to be on time. Okay, I would like to never be in trouble for being there before they pass the sacrament or perform the first opening song ritual. And so you both make these tacit agreements on things that don't have to be boundaries. Okay, and then the final couple of years is maintaining that and doing the aftercare stuff, which can go down to monthly counseling. I've got clients that check in once a year for booster shots. So there you have it, high conflict couples. That's some stuff I just want you to think about. I'll put this up on the YouTube channel. Hit subscribe down there to work with us on that.